You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
Folks, this is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison here with my co-host David Story. In the studio with us, we have the Reverend Bentley. He is the local president for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference here in the area. He was the former co-chair of the Alabama Bernie Sanders campaign. He was originally going to give our closing prayer at the rally tonight. He is running for election in the Presbyterian Church USA. And the election was supposed to be last night, so he was going to be able to come, but it was postponed to tonight. So he has to be there, and we completely understand. We want folks that have powerful convictions and good moral standing to be in positions of power in our churches and in our communities and in our government and in our unions. And so we completely support that and understand that he won't be able to be there tonight, but he is still an important voice in the community. I mean, like I said, he was a co-chair of the Alabama Bernie Sanders campaign. He's the president of the local SCLC. Those are incredibly important organizations and movements, and so we wanted to bring him on to talk about the work that he's been doing and just let him speak on the current national conversation. So brother, I appreciate you coming in.
Good to be here.
Yeah, if you could. Yeah,
good to be here.
Thank you. So yeah, can you just tell us about your work and what are your thoughts of going, of the past few weeks and moving forward?
Well, I'm just a servant of the people, just trying to leave this world better than I found it. I think what we see here in America now is the past is prologue. We have not dealt adequately with the fundamental injustice that gives rise and keeps giving rise to these type of flare-ups. And that injustice is fundamentally rooted in the exploitation of labor. That's what slavery is. It's the exploitation of labor. So when you have 250 years of free labor, you have to account for that. Mm-hmm. Are you with me? And then, in our society, even when you're, quote, quasi-free, you're still being exploited. Mm-hmm. That's why you need unions, right, to make sure that the value of what is produced is not just returned to shareholders, but is returned to the people who actually make it, and that's the workers, right? So, unions are absolutely indispensable, especially in, I feel like an echo in my ear here. Let me get this right here. Unions are absolutely indispensable in a capitalistic society because the goal of a firm is to return value to the shareholder. And how do you do that? Fundamentally by exploiting labor. Yeah. Right. So labor has to organize itself for collective bargaining to make sure that they get enough to keep two chickens in the pot and a roof over their head and clothes on their back. So I'm glad to see how labor is being reinfused with some new energy and new life in this day and time.
Yes, sir. We believe that is incredibly important. I'm incredibly, like I said in my opening, I'm incredibly proud to have brothers and sisters in the labor movement here that believe that it's time for organized labor to stop sitting around. Our labor council, or we have not had a labor council here since 2007, and before that it was incredibly inactive. So we're looking at here in North Alabama, in the biggest, the fastest growing city in the state, soon to be the biggest city in the state.
Yeah.
We have gone near 2 decades with no voice from the labor movement on any issue. Racial justice, economic justice, climate justice, nothing. The labor movement has not been at the center of the conversation, and that is where we ought to be. we represent thousands of working people, and directly and indirectly tens of thousands more, because everybody benefits from unions in the area. And so we have got to and we have taken initiative to no longer allow that to be the case. We are determined to make the labor movement a force to be heard in North Alabama, and we are determined to create strong community coalition partners moving forward to shape the society that we're going to live in. And so it's so important that we not let our community believe that we're standing on the sidelines, that we don't care about them, that we don't care about these issues like Black Lives Matter. We don't care about these issues like what's been happening in the country. And so, I'm proud to say that we're not being silent anymore, and that we're on the side of working people and our Black and brown brothers and sisters.
Well, that's good to hear, because one of the things we have to learn from the past, and that is not to fall for the okie doke again. You go all the way back to Shays' Rebellion, when you had this cross section of working people who band together because they knew who their enemy was.
Right.
And what happened to the labor movement was, here you have a guy with 1,000 cookies telling somebody who only has one cookie that this guy who has no cookies is your enemy. See,
right.
we can't fall for that again. You
Right.
know, that's the only way the labor movement is going to be able to sustain itself, to realize that you can't defeat racism with racism. You have to defeat racism with solidarity.
Right.
Right. So workers have more in common, whether they be black, white, brown, red, whatever color, than they have in differences. And because we all need certain things, we need roof over head, shoes on feet, food on table. And so we have to learn from the past and not make the mistakes of the past of allowing boss man to separate us again and demand our fair share of what workers produce.
That's exactly right. And people do that not only with black and white folks, but they do that with immigrant and citizen. They tell you that immigrants are the reason that you have low wages, that they're the reason that you're being exploited, and that's simply not true. We can look at the facts, we can look at the statistics, and the reality is that the reason that your wages are low, the reason that your working conditions are bad, is not because of our immigrant brothers and sisters. It is because of the boss choosing to pay you less. I mean, and it's just intuitive. Who is the one that's writing your check? It's not the immigrant that's working on the chicken plant.
Right.
It's not him. He's not the one that's choosing your wage.
Right.
He's not the one that's choosing your wage. It's the boss man. And the boss man is deciding of his own accord and specifically and purposely dividing and exploiting immigrants and citizens and black and white and brown folks to get the lowest wage possible, to pay people the least for their labor and extract as much surplus value as they can off of our backs. And then after they do that, they fund all these propaganda efforts to make us fear our immigrant brothers and sisters.
Right,
they fuel all these nationalist and nativist propaganda campaigns to make us to divide us, so that they want us angry at the people to our left or to our right or that are below us, so that we never look up at the source of our problem. And it's important that we actually look up, because that is the source of our problem, and that is how we will address the problems that we face. That's how we will create a better future, is by looking up and addressing the problem where it actually lies.
Well, like I said before, I agree with everything you said, Jacob. My hope and prayer is that the labor movement would not fall prey to the mistakes of the past, and really strive and be intentional about having solidarity and see who your real enemies are. And your real enemy can't be somebody who's trying to make it just like you are. And that's your comrade. That's really the person you need to be in relationship with, because y'all need the same things. So if we can get over that hurdle, I think you'll see a real a real renaissance in the labor movement in this, and I'm very hopeful about it, and not just here but worldwide.
Yes, absolutely. You know, you mentioned that we can't fall for that trap again, and unfortunately, many parts of the labor movement have fallen for that trap. They have fallen for the xenophobic, nativist propaganda and encouraged immigration restrictions and punitive measures for immigrants in the past. And we are moving past that, I believe, and I believe more people are coming to the realization that all workers are. We all have it in common. So thank you so much for Brother Bentley for coming by. I appreciate your voice.
Glad to be here. Looking forward to working with you.
All right. Y'all have a good one.
All right.
Tennessee Valley. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host David Story. In the studio with us, we still have Reverend Gregory Bentley. And so you were talking about Fred Hampton and his call to fight racism with solidarity, not with more racism. And so I want to let you talk about some of what you were talking about during the break, if you would.
Yes, Fred Hampton was 21 years old when he became chairman of the Chicago chapter of the Black Panther Party, and he helped organize the Young Lords, which was a Hispanic group, and also the Young Patriots, which we have one of the original Young Patriots here with us, who very much still has his hands in the soil, High Thurman here in North Alabama. But anyway, when they called Fred Hampton over to meet with them, he goes over, and a lot of these were immigrants from the South that come from the South and from Appalachia, and they brought Southern culture with them, which included Confederate flags. So when some of the Panthers saw that, they was like, man, what is this? You know, we out of here. But Fred said, no, that they don't need ostracism. They need education. Right. And he engaged them. He started building relationships with them. And over time, they saw, hey, this is not our enemy. This is our brother, and we need to be working together to get the common things that we need. Look, nobody's trying to do kumbaya. Let's recognize that what we need, the common things that we need. And at the end of the day, if we can agree on what we need and work together around that, we don't have to be buddy-buddy, we don't have to be friends, but we have to work together to get what we need because we have a common enemy. Right. This is not about touchy-feely. This is about survival. This is about us getting what we deserve as workers in this country. Right. Because we look at this pandemic. Why do you think they were in a rush to get people back to work? Why? Because Jeff Bezos doesn't produce that wealth. The workers do. Right. That's why they're trying to get you back to work. And so that right there should have been a telltale sign of who really produces value in this society.
Yeah. Yeah, and you mentioned Fred Hampton of the Black Panther Party, and so some folks listening may think, now that's a real radical, that's a criminal terrorist organization. And now I want you to kind of sit in that feeling for a second, and then go back to the time that the Black Panther Party was formed. They were formed during segregation. They were formed when black folks were legally kept separate. They were kept down by the state. And I bet if you're thinking that the Black Panthers is a criminal terrorist organization, I bet you also believe that the Second Amendment is important, and that the Second Amendment is important because of the right to bear arms against a tyrannical government. And so, if you believe that, you ought to have a picture of Fred Hampton up on your wall, because they armed themselves in self-defense, not in offensive measures. It's just very important to remember that. The Black Panthers did very good work.
No doubt. There's a lot of education that needs to take place, and because we've all been miseducated, and intentionally so. It's just an old divide and conquer tactic, which we have to get over. We have to or else we'll be repeating this. We'll be on this treadmill over and over and over again. If we can learn from the mistakes of the past, I believe that we can really see an explosion of creative activity and good work by unions, not just to happen here, but globally.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's where the labor movement in its purest form is global.
Right.
The thing is, workers of the world unite. It's not workers of Alabama unite.
Right.
It's not workers of the South unite. It's not even workers of America. Workers of the world. You have so much more in common with the people in Bangladesh or Honduras or South Africa or China. The workers of the world, you have so much more in common with them than you will ever have with Bill Gates, with Elon Musk, with Jeff Bezos. Have almost nothing in common with them.
Right. Well, I would urge anybody who's interested in labor matters to read General Smedley Butler. He was Commandant of the United States Marine Corps. And General Butler, and there's a camp named after him, Camp Smedley Butler. And he said that, I thought I was making the world safe for democracy when I really was just big muscle for big business. Mm-hmm. He came to that realization of how he had been used basically not to make America safe, but to make the world safe for businesses to exploit people across this planet. And that's what we have to recognize, that while we get caught up in these nationalistic identities and stuff, big business respects no national bounds. Right. All they see is resources to be exploited and labor to be exploited. Right? So once you wrap your mind around that, we can join hands across all of these lines, these artificial barriers that we put up. Okay, I'm black, you're white. Okay, it's a fact. But what does that have to do with what we need to survive? You need food, I need food. You need clothing, I need clothing. I need a roof over my head, you need a roof over my head. So how do we work together on that? That has nothing to do with buddy. That has to do with being grown and recognizing what we need to do to ensure our well-being. In this society.
You mentioned that capital respects no borders. People talk about open borders like it's a scary thing. People talk about South American and Central American immigrants coming here like it's a scary thing. I will tell you that we already have open borders, and we have had open borders for decades. But open borders for who? Open borders for capital, open borders for business, open borders for American companies to go overseas and exploit foreign workers, pay them cents on the dollar of what they could pay American labor, what they could pay American union labor. They're going over and essentially making slaves of folks over all over in the other side of the world, and they do that on the other side of the world partially because it's out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
We don't see them 12-year-old Vietnamese kids being forced under the lash to lose fingers on sewing machines. We don't see all that. We don't see all the exploitation that goes on every day, daily by American corporations.
Right.
We don't.
And in America itself.
And in America, right.
Picking fruits and vegetables.
Yeah.
Yes.
They want undocumented workers because they have no rights.
Right. They want undocumented workers here because they have no rights. It's we've got we've already got open borders. The question is, who are we going to have open borders for? Are we going to treat our immigrant brothers and sisters respectfully and humanely and with empathy? Or are we just going to let our big businesses and corporations and oligopolies exploit them and exploit us and pit us against each other?
Well, this is what many politicians do. They get up and they whip their base up. We're going to stop all this immigration. They do that. That's their voting base. But they wink at the people, at the money folk, and say, we're not going to stop this because I know you need that cheap labor. That's the game that is played, and we need to peep that.
Here's the perfect example of the game that we're talking about. Remember that ICE raid in Mississippi?
There you go.
That
There you
ICE
go.
raid in Mississippi, there was a chicken plant that had immigrant workers in there. That they was union. This was a union plant. They won a sexual harassment lawsuit for millions of dollars, and the company tipped off ICE and said there are undocumented workers in here. We didn't know anything about it. And like 600 people were arrested.
Right.
600 people were arrested by ICE agents and took out of the country. And then after that, the Mississippi Department of Labor advertised their career day. I mean, that is fascism, folks.
Right.
That is when the government, when agents of the state use violent force to extract
Yes.
and deport our brothers and sisters and then use their resources to advertise for these companies that reported them.
Right.
That's fascism.
Yes.
That is evil. That is evil. And the labor movement, we can't stand for that.
Yeah. Again, we just got to we got to really grow up fast and not fall prey to the old okie doke of the past, and to see who our real enemy is.
That's right.
Who our real enemy is, and it's not the working Joe out here just trying to make a living, just trying to make it from day to day, but it's the person who is robbing workers of their value each and every day. By putting their hands on the scales of legislation, by having legislation passed and creating a legal environment that actually puts the clamps on workers and finds all kind of ways to siphon off what they do, what they've already been robbed of, and then what they get, then we try to find other ways to siphon more of it off. You get what I'm saying? So we've just got to open our eyes and see that we have a grand opportunity. There's a lot of people in our society, but I think there's great opportunity for us to take a quantum leap forward together, and for all workers to be made whole, and to have the value returned to them that they produce.
Yeah. It's incredibly important to make sure that we stand together. Your enemy is not. It's not workers of a different color. It's not workers of a different national origin.
Nope.
The person that is keeping you from the things that you have earned, the person that is the people that are exploiting your labor, that are keeping the value that you produce for them and not giving it to you, it's not those folks. It's the folks at the top. And we've got to focus our anger and our agitation where it belongs.
Well, you got 40 million people have applied for unemployment since this pandemic hit. And yet the top 1% have seen their wealth skyrocket. How is that? That you have 40 million people who are out here floundering, and yet the richest people on the planet have seen their wealth increase by 20%. Something is wrong with that.
Yeah.
Something is wrong with that picture. So we just got to get smart and just open our eyes and see what's right in front of us. It's really not hard to see. No. This is not like something that's hidden. We just have to call a thing what it is, and then act on the basis of what we see to work together to make life better for everybody.
Right. And if you're listening and you're thinking, well, I don't know if I agree with everything that they're saying, but this union stuff, that sounds interesting. Reach out to us. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. We will talk to you. Like, this is what David and I, this is our work. Okay, this is what we do. We want to organize workers. And we talked to nurses last week. One of them described himself as a constitutionalist Christian conservative, and the other one said he was an ultra liberal, right? The union is for everybody, and I don't care particularly what you're going to do in November. Now, if you're going to go and vote for Trump in November, I'll tell you all day that I think you're wrong, and I think you're misguided, and I'll tell you why. But you're my brother, you're my sister, and we all have got to come together. And so whatever you're going to do in November, if you want to organize your workplace, which is the best and really the only way that you're going to make material advances in your life and for yourself and for your fellow workers.
That's true.
And if you've got questions, like I said, reach out to us. We'll put you in touch with somebody that'll organize you, that'll teach you how to organize. So, Brother Bentley, thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Looking forward to working with y'all. Y'all
Yes.
doing good work here. Keep it up.
Yes, sir.
All right.
All right, this is the Valley Labor Report. Stay tuned. We have got the national president for the American Federation of Government Employees up next. Thanks for listening, folks. If you want to keep up with us throughout the week, you can follow us online. We've got a Facebook page, facebook.com/Valley Labor Report. You can search us on YouTube at The Valley Labor Report. We're on Twitter at Labor Reporters. I'm on Twitter at JacobM_AL. David is on Twitter at Radical Unionist, RADICL Unionist. If you appreciate our work and want to ensure that we can stay on the air, consider supporting us with a monthly donation on Patreon at patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report.